This is The Listening Tube.
Hello, thank you for putting your ear to the Listening Tube. I'm your host, Bob Woodley.
He's a nut job, but he's still sharp.
On this episode, we'll hear about an anti-saliva campaign, and I'll have a conversation with author Sidney Pines about hidden forces meant to divide us. But first,
Not the headlines.
school students in multiple districts around the United States have been suspended or otherwise punished for leaving their classrooms to participate in protests. You can call them anti-ICE protests or pro-illegal immigrant protests. It doesn't matter in this context. The question is, what inspired them to walk out into the street? Much of the media was careful to point out that the protests were student-led, making sure none of the teachers could be held accountable for organizing the truancy that resulted. All right, we'll assume that these teenage students organized the protests all by themselves. When I was that age, the largest event we could organize without adult supervision was gathered around a quarter barrel of beer out in the middle of nowhere. But sure, today's kids are different. They're much more socially conscious, more aware of what's going on in the world. But how? Is it from the news or from their teachers? A recent report from the News Literacy Project would indicate it's not from the news. In fact, today's young people have little to no respect for legacy media or the people they see on TV who claim to be journalists. 84% of teens in the survey describe the news media with a negative term. Some of the popular terms were fake, lies, false, and untrustworthy. 19% said the news media was inaccurate or deceptive. 10% used the word biased. 11% used the words inflammatory or stressful. But more than 4 out of every 5 kids used a negative word to describe today's news.
And if that wasn't enough,
When asked about journalists in particular, 81% said the top thing journalists do well is lying or deceiving. The second most popular answer to what journalists are good at is nothing. Teenagers clearly don't trust the news media. Young Americans today have utter contempt for the state of the media. Teenagers actually have some advice for the media. The top 2 things today's young people say journalists could improve upon are being honest or getting the facts right, and minimizing bias or improving balance in the coverage. None of the survey data shared mentioned any political persuasions, only the impression of the media. And it's no surprise that today's youth are well aware of what's going down. There's no love lost between teenagers and the news media in America. They don't like it, they don't trust it, and they have specific advice for how to get it back to what it's supposed to be. You know, what it was before. A vehicle for information, a way to stay aware of what's going on in the city, the state, the country, and the world. How far and wide was up to you. You could get the farm report or not. Today's media is all in your face all the time, and the kids probably see more of it than older people. Contrary to what older people may believe, young people aren't being fooled by the media. And the survey by the News Literacy Project seems to confirm that. So if today's teenagers don't trust the media, what force was the inspiration for students to walk out of class to participate in protests? Did their parents put them up to it? Was there a secret PTA meeting where moms and dads conspired to rally their kids in the street to protest the application of federal laws? Probably not. It's possible in some neighborhoods, I suppose, but not likely. Unless the teachers agreed. What is likely is that the teachers conspired to rally the kids, who they think are their kids and not the parents' kids, to rally in the street to protest the enforcement of federal laws. There is a third option. Some outside force, like the Chinese Communist Party or a George Soros-funded group, somehow got a hold of the hearts and minds of children in several school districts around the country and called them to action. The idea isn't that far-fetched, knowing what we know about paid protesters causing chaos whenever the opportunity presents itself. But the more likely scenario is still the teachers. In school is where the movements began, where word began to spread, and from where the activism emanated. They didn't start on a soapbox on a street corner, or in a church or union hall. They started in the schools. If the teachers want to wash their hands of any responsibility, then they have to admit they have no control over the school environment, and the lunatics, aka students, are running the asylum. Otherwise, the teachers or the union that represents them should be held responsible for the abhorrent behavior of their students during school hours. Don't just suspend the students who walked out. Discipline the teachers who let it happen. Fire the teachers who helped it happen.
Let's go back through the listening tube for This Week in History.
This week in 1903, Barney Gilmore became the first person to be arrested because of a new law in St. Louis, Missouri that outlawed spitting in public. The way people presented themselves and behaved in public was very different 123 years ago. Not every place had a law against spitting, but in St. Louis, it didn't seem like too much to ask of fellow citizens. I'm sure the St. Louis Cardinals baseball players at League Park in 1903 had an issue with the law. I'm going to look that up.
He's going to look it up. He's really going to do it.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
As it turns out, even baseball players had to change their habits because of the anti-spitting law. And it wasn't easy. Baseball players had already been spitting on dry, dusty fields for decades. Chewing tobacco was a time-honored way of maintaining saliva content. This was long before coolers of orangeade or some other form of hydration was common in the dugouts of baseball teams. But now they could be penalized for spitting on the field. They still chewed the tobacco, but now they had to be more discreet about how and when they rid themselves of the buildup of juices that accumulate when you have a wad of chew in your craw. But this isn't about baseball. It's about a guy who became the first person to get arrested for spitting in public. The campaign to stop spitting in public began to spread after that. People in other cities were calling for anti-spitting laws. But not because of decorum, because of disease. Tuberculosis was rampant at the time, and it was felt that stopping people from spitting all the time would help slow the spread of the disease. A story on strangeago.com cites several newspapers from the time about the subject. What started as one guy getting arrested for spitting in St. Louis led to laws in other places, too. Washington, D.C. levied fines on spitters beginning in 1916. Public awareness campaigns were the preferred method of getting people to stop spitting. bringing an end to what one Tennessee newspaper called the nasty puddles of tobacco juice left behind by chronic spitters. Barney Gilmore, the man arrested in St. Louis, would recover from his embarrassing encounter with legal precedent and history. He was an actor at a theater in St. Louis when he was arrested. Barney went on to play parts in 20 motion pictures between 1912 and 1940. Most were prior to the introduction of the talking picture, and his last performance was that of an uncredited migrant in the 1940 cinematic masterpiece, The Grapes of Wrath. That one's for Sean, who tells me the history segment is his favorite part of the listening tube.
The listening tube will return at the speed of sound.
Send email to thelisteningtube@outlook.com.
Follow The Listening Tube at thelisteningtube.com. My guest today is an average person who did something not all average people do. She paid attention to what was happening around her and took notes, because what she was witnessing was out of the ordinary and worthy of being recorded. The late John Lennon, when asked how he wrote his book, said, "I wrote things down on little pieces of paper, and when I had enough little pieces of paper, I had a book." Well, author Sidney Pines did that too, but with today's technology and access to information. She spoke with me about it from her home in Texas. I know you've written a book. It's called Awakening, A Patriot's Diary of American Deception.
Correct.
And I have some questions about the book, but I want to talk about some other stuff first, if that's okay.
Sure. Absolutely.
Now, why is the year 2020 significant for you when it comes to political and societal observations that you've made?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. I started noticing things maybe 2018, little things. And like a lot of things just did not make sense to me. Like I was oblivious to anything political before that, oblivious. And little things like waiting in a doctor's office, you scroll through your phone and I saw videos of, different things. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And then I would go home and while I was cooking dinner, I would watch the news and I was flabbergasted that those great videos weren't mentioned on the news. And then I noticed several things like wonderful world events that specifically the Trump family was doing and how they went to third world countries and were helping children and none of it got mentioned. And I thought, okay, this is really odd, but I blew it off. And then things just kind of escalated. And then right before the election, I really noticed oddities. So many things were never mentioned. So many great things that were happening were not mentioned. But I remember specifically on the news one night, and I'm not exaggerating, they spent like 11 minutes talking about how Michelle Obama was spotted signing an autographed cup at Starbucks. And I thought to myself, that was such a long segment for something so useless. A lot of people sign autographs. And all the other stuff was never mentioned. And I'm like, stuff just does not make sense. So from there, it prompted my interest. And I started digging. And I came across so many other things that led me to this thing and that thing. And then 2020 is when it really hit me. And I noticed the change in people. I noticed the division in the world. People I know who had sense of humors no longer had sense of humors. People that used to get along no longer got along. And it was just so chaotic. And again, so I'm like, okay, this is something's going on. And at this point, I pretty much went down enough rabbit holes to truly believe something else was going on. And I said to myself, much like our generation learned about the Holocaust in school, I really felt our future generations, whatever was transpiring, my grandkids and great grandkids are going to be learning about this. And actually, the kids in Russia actually are learning about this right now. It's already in their school books of what's going on in America. So I decided to start typing kind of like what was a diary for my grandkids and future descendants to read. And actually I enjoyed it then. And after so many pages, so many words, and then I personally knew somebody that was completely disowned by two of her sons. And she says, no one understands my point of view. And to disown someone because you don't believe in their beliefs, I don't know, maybe it did happen years ago, but I don't remember ever hearing about it. This has just been so different. So I reached out to a publisher and said, hey, I've been writing up notes for my kids, but I think a lot of people will benefit by hearing what we all felt. And they agreed. And
Now, Sydney, uh,
yes.
so before this, and I kind of
Uh,
had a sneaking suspicion that this was true. You were completely apolitical before any of this happened.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's
I knew nothing.
It's funny you would mention that because now I have a similar story, not me personally, but my wife,
Uh-huh.
completely apolitical. I was always a big fan of CNN. I watched
Uh-huh.
CNN religiously for decades. But
Uh-huh.
when Donald Trump came down that escalator in 2015, I think it was,
Pivotal moment. Yes.
CNN changed. And
Uh-huh.
my wife, who was completely apolitical, would sit there with me and we would watch CNN and she would get incensed. And
Yes.
to the point where she, for the first time in her life, registered to vote as a Republican.
Right.
CNN
And
created a monster.
absolutely.
And I honestly, I don't watch it very much anymore, and I kind of feel sorry for the people who work there.
Yes.
I
Yes.
do.
I agree. I
So,
agree.
so you were completely apolitical. You started
Yeah.
observing this phenomena, these changes that you were
Yeah.
witnessing at street level in your own personal life. And what was the first thing you heard or saw that made your ears perk up and made you think, "Hmm, what's up with this?"
Yes. The first thing, and this was huge for me, was I saw a speech that Trump gave. And he had said, my heart goes out to, I don't remember verbatim, word for word. My heart goes out to the American farmers, whether it's corn, soybeans, cows, pigs, and the military. Those are the two people that always hold a great place in my heart. And he went on and on. Well, on the news that night, they showed, it was a 45-minute speech. They showed like 30 seconds. And during that 30 seconds, they said that Trump said, all all military are pigs. They took that they said that he said that. They took words of that speech and spliced it into that. And I was flabbergasted. And my mother, who lived with us at the time, oh, I can't believe him. He said this and this. I'm like, he did not say that. I saw the original speech. I saw it. And I said to my mom, I said, think about it. Do you really think, even if he felt that way, do you really think he would be naive enough to say that on the airwaves? He wouldn't say it. So it, to me, it was so obvious it was phony. So then sure enough, I went down more rabbit holes. The journalist that did that, they caught him. He's blacklisted in the journalistic world. He was never allowed to work again, and he had to give a public apology. He did, but no one showed the apology and no one showed that it was spliced. So what good was it? And then something really stupid that I noticed was, and I remember being in the grocery store and my husband says to me, so what? I'm like, no, no, something's not right. Melania was the only first lady in the history, as far back as you can go, when there was magazines, that was never on the cover of a magazine. Never. And I'm like, that's just weird. What, and my husband's like, what does that matter? I'm like, it probably doesn't, but it sends a red flag. Why? They were the only presidents not to get a Christmas special. Every other president, they showed the recipes of their family tradition, and it was a 2-hour long special. They were the only ones. And I'm like, what what don't they want us to hear or see? It's like to me it was so obvious how he was so omitted.
So when you started noticing these things and you started chronicling what you were witnessing, and then you started to do research,
Hmm.
correct? How
Correct.
how did you begin your research?
Well, that's a great question because a lot of stuff is scrubbed. A lot of stuff, they say Google is tainted. So once I found in the very beginning, I don't know if you remember this or not. In the very beginning, there was a social media platform for people like me. It was called Parlor. And I went on there and there was not fact checking. There was not, Zuckerberg taking things down. And it was amazing. It was a lot of patriots who felt something was off, and it was inspirational quotes and then people saying, you got to look at this, you got to look at that. And it was showing us things that you could get. There's other platforms you can get the quote unquote truth on. You really can. And it's out there. And a lot of these rabbit holes we went down there, if you look, you can find them. But it's not easy. You can't just do a simple Google search, or you can't just ask your neighbor. You have to be dedicated. Well, then they took Parlor down, which was another red flag, because at this point, when Parlor was around, that's when there was all those hearings on the stolen election. Some of them were televised at 10 o'clock at night, and they were live. And I feel a lot of people in the world don't even know that. And I'd watch these and I would see proof, and I do mean proof, people testifying and forensic specialists saying, no, no, no. And then I would hear on the regular news how there's no proof and everything was thrown out. It wasn't true. But I came across all those platforms just by, if you find one spot, it'll take you to all the others. And then Parlor was taken down because they said people were trying to incite more violence, and not true, not true. And I was on it, and I followed 100 and some people, and none of them were violent, but they took it down. So then you learn else to go. And then more and more stations started telling the truth, Newsmax, OAN, Right Side Broadcasting. I mean, it's out there. It really is. But if you just want to live your life day by day and just watch the regular news, you're never going to know this. And I'm not talking about people that do that because, again, I was like that. And, I was like that prior to 2018. I was the same way. And I do feel there is someone that actually posted on X just 2 days ago who just now said, guys, I was wrong. There's something else going on. I am now a conservative. There's something else going on. And up until 48 hours ago, she was a diehard liberal. So I do feel that with everything coming out, more people are waking up.
Well, certainly with the purchase of X by Elon Musk and opening up that platform to divergent opinions, and of course, President Trump starting his own social media site, Truth
True
Social.
social.
Conservative opinions now have more than one or two platforms that they can use to counter
Right.
some of the mainstream media narratives and frankly lies and misdirections that we've been getting
Absolutely.
from ABC and NBC and CBS and
Right.
CNN and
Yes.
MSNBC and
Yeah.
all
All
the
the
rest.
above.
What gave you confidence that your sources were reliable? I mean, do you have specific standards or was it just gut instinct? How do you determine whether or not you can trust your sources?
A little bit of all of the above. And actually, that was one of the questions one of my sons asked me probably 4 years ago. They says, Mom, how do you know the people you're watching or listening to? How do you know they're not the fake news? And it's a great question. And I actually put in the book, I am not 100% sure. There's no way. And for me to say I am 100% sure would be just arrogant and cocky on my side. I don't say that. And I actually say in there several times, listen, I could be wrong, but based on everything I'm seeing, I don't think I am. But if I ever am wrong, because I'm working on book 3 right now. I'll be the first to admit it. I will be the first to admit it. But here's what solidified my reasons why I feel everything is correct. There was a lot of things that were told to us that even me, I was like, "Oh God, there's no way. This is crazy. This is way out there." And then I would go somewhere else and be like, "Oh my God, it is possible." And then a few things I learned 2 months later, it actually came to fruition. It actually happened in the world. But the biggest nail in the coffin for me when I said, "Okay, I know what I'm following is correct," is 2 things. I had mentioned that they are now it's in the school books in Russia how the American 2020 election was stolen, and they're learning it in their history class. So I came across that, went down the rabbit holes, felt it was safe to say, yes, it's true. And then another thing was in Germany, because this is global. What's going on right now is global. In Germany, there were people actually driving tanks through the streets because they were fed up with their government and everyone wants their freedom back. And it's a big, long article. But there's no way to know if it's 100% accurate or that's 100% the way it's going to go down. And I truly believe the only people that know that are the highest people up in the military with military clearance. And I'm not one of them.
They're not telling anybody, are they?
Exactly, right. They're not going to. And it's funny because, people see dates, this is going to happen. And I'm guilty of that too. In my book, okay, this date's supposed to happen. But then you think to yourself, okay, they're not going to put it online, their next move. So, but it kind of gives you a guideline because I do believe there's so much more going on behind the scenes than any of us know.
Well, obviously, you've already written one book, you've already started another book, and you're already starting a third book. So,
Correct.
do you think you'll
Yeah.
ever run out of material?
Yeah, I kind of hope so. And I do. I want it to be over with. And the joke is, I'm working on book 3 right now, and I says book 3 better be the conclusion. I don't know. If not, I'll keep writing. But what I like about this book is there's a lot of books out there that will expose the truth. Patrick Byrne wrote a bestseller, but he's ex-CIA. There's whistleblowers that wrote books. There's ex-military, but there's no everyday American that wrote a book from our point of view. And as of right now, mine, I think, is the only one out there. It shows everyday people just, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And then once we realized what was going on and the division in the world, I don't know about you, but for a lot of people, it was hard even going to a dinner, a wedding, a work meeting with everyday people because everyone felt like they were so on edge. And if you had a mixed crowd with some people voted for Biden, some people voted for Trump, it's like people walked on eggshells. And how we all felt is in there, and how we discovered it's in there. And it's not like when we were growing up. My mom would vote for someone, my dad would vote for someone else. Okay, congratulations, your guy won. What's for dinner? End of story. This is so different. So different. And I think no matter what side you're on, I think we all can agree with that.
Now, do people call you a conspiracy theorist?
Oh, absolutely. And halfway through the book, I actually put in there, I thought, oh, okay, I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist. Never considered myself that until I got halfway through the book. And after a couple of years, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a full blown conspiracy theorist. But the funny thing is, out of the hundreds of conspiracy theories that are out there, there's probably only 5 that has not shown its face yet. Most of them have come true.
Well, then they're not theories once they come true, correct?
Correct, right. I always say the true definition of conspiracy theorist is someone who can see the truth before anyone else can.
Now, you had mentioned several times during our conversation so far about going down rabbit holes.
Correct.
Now, obviously, now you've been doing this research for quite a long time now, and you've gone down a lot of those rabbit holes. Are you getting better at spotting them before you go down them, or do you still go down them with all the eager and determination that you had before, or do you try to avoid those rabbit holes now?
No, I still go down that, but I only go down the rabbit holes if something new pops up. It's like, oh, I didn't hear that. And then not only that, now that I'm actually writing about it, I don't want to put something in there that I just see. I'll go down the rabbit hole before I put it in there. And even though I went down a rabbit hole, it could still be wrong, but I feel better mentally knowing I did my research before I documented it. But most of the rabbit holes I've gone down. So I'll see something or I'll come across something and I'll be like, "Oh, I know that. I know that." But sometimes I still go down them. And I'm not gonna lie, to be honest with you, if I didn't have kids, I might still be oblivious. But with everything I discovered, I genuinely got scared. My children are grown, but they still have a long life ahead of them. They're gonna have kids, and it scared me. It really did. And that's really what triggered me into wanting to learn more because I'm like, this world is rough. They're gonna have a hard time if things don't change or if my way's incorrect or whatever. And I just wanted to stay on top of it for my kids and
Sid-
grandkids and great grandkids.
Sydney, have you encountered any obstacles to your research? Has anyone that you know of gone out of their way to prevent you from finding the truth, or did the government come knocking on your door by any chance?
No, no, and knock on wood, not yet. And it's funny because before I decided to publish this, I did have a long talk with my husband and my kids. I'm like, are you guys okay with this? Because people are going to say your mom's crazy and we have to be prepared or I don't know what can happen. And they all says, no, no, we're okay with it at the time. Now I don't know, their feelings might have changed. They haven't said anything, but no, as of right now, no.
Sydney, do you live your life any differently now that you've started this quest than you might be if you hadn't?
No, I don't. And it's important for people to know that because I feel like there's such a stigma that was placed on us. First of all, we're not violent, we're not domestic terrorists. When we say we the people, a lot of people have to realize that means everyone's included, no matter what side you're on. We're fighting for all of us. And still did everything the same. Still went on vacation, still went to work, still laughed. I still watched movies. I did not let it interfere with my life. The only difference is I feel it makes you become a little bit more intuitive. So my radar for and my gut for dishonest people or people that are blinded and they only want to see their point of view, it made me notice them more. But I still feel I acted the same and I still, conversed with them and everything. But I definitely, my radar was up a little bit more as far as people go. And it was a little rough sometimes if I was in a meeting or something I had to attend. And it would get frustrating that people don't see what's going on, that there's so much. And to be honest with you, I feel like that nowadays, now with this release of the Epstein files and it's out there what these people did, it's like, and no one seems to care. So that kind of bothered me. But as far as my actual life goes, no, nothing changed. I still did everything and still lived.
Are people treating you any differently than they did before?
No, 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 thank God they have not. People that aren't on the same page, they're halfway there. They're not sure if they agree with everything I said, and that's fine. People are entitled to their opinion. They don't have to believe everything I do. And I'm not going to try to be like the MSN and try to convince you that my way is correct. No, I'm not like that. You're entitled to your opinion. So yeah, no, luckily I have not come across any strained relationships or no fights or no nothing.
I get that, Sydney. I actually had a gentleman walk up to me in a bar one time and referred to this program and said, "I agree with 70% of what you say," and I was like,
Yeah,
"I'll
yeah.
take it." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Is there any like one thing, or maybe even a couple of things that you've learned that most of us just don't realize is happening?
Um, yes, but again, I'm not sure if it's true. I feel like there's been so much extreme things that don't make sense. So a few people I feel that what's going on is scripted. I don't know if you've heard that before. Like a lot of the things are being played out according to the playbook, the military playbook, not the not the Democrat cabal playbook, the military playbook. It's all scripted. They know what they're doing. And
Who's military?
well, supposedly there's a military operation going on, and
Okay,
which
but
may or may not be
who
the case.
who's military? Who's
What
military?
do you mean? Oh, the good military, Trump's military.
The United States
And
military.
correct,
Okay.
correct. Yes, and supposedly uh it's all been done, it's taken care of. There's a reason why everything's happening. It had to be played out this way. Timing is everything. And again, it's all scripted. Now, that may or may not be true, but a lot of things point to the fact that it is true. I feel like so many things were obvious. For instance, the stumbling, the fumbling of Biden. I feel if we were in a normal world, normal democracy, if everything I've learned is not true, I feel they would have had him removed a long time ago, and they didn't. And his fumbles and jumbles got worse, and it got more obvious. The fact that Kamala Harris said that God wasn't welcomed at her rally, I feel if this was real and not scripted, even her would not have been ignorant enough to say that at a rally with thousands of people watching. And it's like nothing makes sense, but yet if you're following this, it does make sense. Another thing that really didn't make sense to me was where they're trying so hard to deport the illegal immigrants, but yet the government shut down because they want to give free health care to illegal immigrants, the illegal immigrants that are about to be removed. So even if it passed, we're removing them. So what good was there's just so many things that don't make sense where the rabbit hole of things being scripted does make sense.
As we've already mentioned, you have the first book out. It's called Awakening, A Patriot's Diary of American Deception.
Correct.
There's another one due out in April, the
Yes.
second edition. And then you're
Yes.
already working on the third one.
Yes.
So, and you're hoping that you run out of material after the third one. So,
Yes.
you know what? I'm kind of rooting for that too, but we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
where can people learn more about you and your books?
You can go to Amazon. It's Amazon Kindle. It's on any major website. Google Playbook, Apple Play, Barnes and Nobles. It's also available in several other countries. And on there, you could read a short bio on there. And there's also the back cover explains it all. And I also have got I'm on X at Sydney 1776. And I also have a profile on MailChimp.
So, Sydney, is there anything that I did not ask you about today that you were kind of hoping you'd be able to share with us?
No, you hit it all. But I will say this, and please let your listeners know, uh, my book is not for the weak of heart. I don't sugarcoat anything, and I tell it straightforward. I don't feel it's offensive, but I do. I'm straightforward, and that's just how we felt. You do not have to believe everything in there. Again, I put in there, we don't know if it's true, but I feel it's an eye opener. And a lot of the Amazon reviews are saying that also. Even the people who might not be a believer or people that they're not 100% sure what's going on in this world, they said it's an eye opener. It's something to think about. And it's not fancy. It's just written in plain English. And I just hope it shows our point of view. And I'm not looking to change anyone's point of mind, but for all the people who think people like me are bad people, I hope at least they'll understand where we're coming from. and the people that are like me will definitely relate.
All right, then, Cindy. Well, thank
Yeah.
you very
Yeah.
much. I really do appreciate you spending some time in the listening tube with me today.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
The book again is Awakening, A Patriot's Diary of American Deception by Sidney Pines. The first issue is out, the second issue will be out in April, and Sidney's already compiling the third. Kudos to Sidney for hoping to run out of material. And thank you to Sidney Pines for spending some time with me in the listening tube. The Listening Tube is written and produced by yours truly. Copyright 2026. Shout out to some new locations checking in: Manila, Pocatello, Idaho, Las Vegas, and Windsor, Connecticut. Thank you for putting your ear to the Listening Tube. Follow the Listening Tube at thelisteningtube.com. I'm your host, Bob Woodley.
He's the worst thing to happen to old people.
For thou ad infinitum.